All right, welcome in everybody to another episode of Fish Stripes Live. Here with you before the Marlins and Cardinals get a three-game series started in St. Louis. A Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday series. I am Ethan Madowski, your host for tonight's episode. Joining me, we've got, David Fernandez, Isaac Azut, Kevin Barral, and Noah Berger. We got a big squad for you tonight. We might even have Alex Carver of Fish on the Farm joining us to talk about one of the guys the Marlins called up in preparation for this series later today. But first, let's get into recapping last game series as we usually do to start out these streams. It was a really good weekend for the Marlins. The division rivals Atlanta Braves came to town, and they took 2 of 3 from the Braves, a massive two wins from their division rivals. Obviously, they went for the sweep on Sunday. This is the second time this year the Marlins have had a chance to sweep the Braves, and were unable to. David, I'm going to start with you. I saw your recap out for swings and misses today, so let's start here. Just your overall takeaways from that series and what it could mean to the Marlins, overall in the grand scheme of the season.
Well, I think the first thing that you talk about after watching that series is Starling Marte and the level that he's playing at, the production that he's providing offensively and defensively. I mean, 2 games in a row, he throws out a guy at home. The previous series he had, robbed Daza of an extra base hit at least, maybe even a home run. So Marte's playing at an all-star level for the Marlins at this point. And then obviously you're really encouraged by the consistency that Jazz is providing as well, especially considering the holes in the lineup that continue to be there. And then Zach Thompson's performance the other night, he really saved the bullpen. It was planned as a bullpen day, and then Thompson gives them 5 scoreless innings, and he pitches really well, which in turn allowed them to, supplement with the bullpen the next day, because, Pablo, for whatever reason, he doesn't pitch very well against the Braves. So there some positives there. I mean, they got some clutch hits. I mean, you would obviously love to see the sweep, but still 2 out of 3, especially after they were reeling from that 1-8 road trip. I mean, all in all, a pretty good homestand and a pretty good weekend.
Yeah, well, they go 4-2 on the homestand against the Rockies and the Braves, which was huge, especially like you mentioned, David, coming off of that dismal road trip that they were just on. I was at the Thompson game, and I was sitting next to Craig Mish in the press box, and he says they can't let this guy go out for a 5th inning because he was getting hit hard. Acuna had a 117-mile-an-hour line out off of the guy. You're sitting here saying, okay, this is just kind of waiting to blow up. And then they sent him out there for that 5th inning because they did need it. And especially with what happened on Sunday, they really ended up needing it. And he goes 1-2-3, strikes out Acuna to end it. That was ballsy. That was the one word that came to mind when I saw that happen. Noah, we haven't met before. Welcome to the stream. Good to talk to you. Let me hear your impressions on what you saw this weekend.
So first off, Zach Thompson surprised me. He's batting 1,000, it seems, which honestly is quite impressive. Our bullpen was our bullpen. They were pretty good. Our starters, Zach Thompson was great. Sandy was great. I wasn't able to watch the first 2 games because of the Sabbath, of course, but I was able to watch yesterday's game. So
you got the short end of the stick there.
Yeah. But yesterday we didn't look so bad. Marte's he's on another level. I'm liking Isan getting on base. I'm really liking that. The amount of times he's been getting on base. I see your face, Isaac. I just like the production from the bottom of the lineup right now. Just to add on to the production from the top, it's really nice to have the supplement of the bottom guys still getting on base and keeping things moving.
Yeah, well, one guy I really have loved what I've seen from recently is Jorge Alfaro. John Birdie has gotten going for them a little bit at the bottom of the lineup. Kevin, I want to go to you on Pablo yesterday, and I want to go to Isaac on this as well afterwards because he had some comments on it before we were talking here. So he just can't seem to figure out the Braves, or the Braves just seem to have his number. I'm pretty sure he started the 29-9 game last year. Am I right on that? Yeah, so he started the 29-9 game. He's gotten beat up on them a few times. So where did it go wrong for Pablo yesterday, Kevin? And just what kind of situation does that put the Marlins in as we head into this series?
You just had to remind us about that game.
It was a tough night for Pablo. I don't think he's ever been he just doesn't have much success versus the Braves. The Braves just got them. You have to think of the lineup too that they have. They have Acuna, they have Ozzy Albies. This is just a really good lineup. Austin Riley, who's emerged as one of the good players on this team. It's a good team, and just Pablo, I don't think has ever been able to figure out what the secret to this Braves team just getting hits off the Marlins. And I don't know, man. If I've always said it, I think Pablo's one of those guys. I mean, it just seems like in that rotation, he's the one that you would say if they're gonna sell, he's gonna be one of those guys I think they'll trade. And that just puts my point a little bit higher. I mean, just says my point even more that he could be one of those guys. If the Marlins turn out to be sellers, that he might be gone. I mean, this puts the Marlins in a tough position with Pablo, especially if he can't beat a division rival. Even though it's only the Braves, he's done well against the Phillies. He's done well against the Mets. So I think it's just an issue with the Braves, and the run support just wasn't there at the start of the game. Came in more until like middle to the end of the game, where that run support really started coming in for Pablo.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and that Braves lineup seemed like they were just kind of waiting to break out, right? Like they had lost two frustrating games coming into the series when they got walked off on by Philly, and then they lose two more to the Marlins, who they expect to beat. They should at least expect to beat up on the Marlins, but the Marlins have had their number this year. They're now 5-1 against 5-2 against the Braves. So that's better than they've done. The last full season that the Marlins played against the Braves, they were 4-15 against the Braves. So they already have a better record going for them than they did the last time. Isaac, just to wrap up this series, Pablo and just Marte as well. Just how fantastic he's been.
Just two things on Pablo. One, on Sunday, he did go a little change-up heavy. He did a little off-speed heavy. Guys like Acuna, Riley, they will crush those hanging pitches when they know that it's coming. So, and one thing you have to think about, the start he was coming off of was the longest start of his career. And now this start was the shortest start of his career. So you don't know if there's any, fatigue there. I highly doubt it, but just in case, that's something to monitor. And regarding Marte, it's been a while since we've had someone, affect the ball game in a myriad of different ways. In the outfield, throwing guys out, making catches in the warning track, running balls down all the time, hitting home runs, stealing bases. He stole a base yesterday, down by 2 with 2 outs in a very, spot where his run doesn't matter. And I was confident because he knows he has to steal that base. He's going to be safe. He's just a dynamic player that I'm very impressed with as well. He had a great series.
Yeah, he's been tremendous, and it started this awesome, this fun discussion on Twitter about who he's the best Marlin since. And I said Stanton, honestly. People were talking about Yelich and Ozuna, and I don't want to get too deep into this conversation because it could literally take up the whole stream talking about Yelich and Stanton and stuff. But it did spark an interesting conversation, and it just shows the level that he's playing at right now. And we just Fish Stripes just put out the Pay Marte pod, and just talk. It puts the Marlins in such an interesting situation where if he just keeps playing this well, maybe they're forced to just say screw it and offer him the contract that so many of us want him to be offered. It's for the best of the team. But let's go and look forward now and start with this St. Louis series. And I think the place that I want to start at and where I want to spend a lot of time today is just the roster moves that the Marlins have been making recently. So the first one, somebody in the chat just asked, how concerned are you about the Brian Anderson news? So for those that don't know, Brian Anderson was placed on the 60-day IL. I'm sure this will be retroactive to when he was actually placed on the IL, which was May 25th. So this will make him eligible to come off the IL in late July. I think that's kind of when we all expected, I think that's kind of when we all expected him to come off the IL. But now it puts the Marlins in this interesting position where Jose Devers also goes on the IL. So they have to call up an infielder. But today they don't call up an infielder. They call up a pitcher because they took BA off the 40-man by putting him on the 60-day IL. They bring up Luis Madero, who we've seen before. And he's a great story. He's a super nice guy. And he talked about how he lost his mother right before he was about to make his major league debut. And he made his major league debut right around Mother's Day. It was, the nicest thing. And then he gets DFA'd after getting blown up in an inning. And he seems like he could be a sacrificial lamb here again, because we know that the Marlins are going to have to make this move for an infielder who could also be a sacrificial lamb, because we expect Miguel Rojas to meet me in Chicago this weekend. So it's a mess. And the roster has kind of been a mess because of the injuries all season. So David, I want to go to you here. just what the fuck?
Yeah, man. Listen,
Honestly.
when you call it a mess, there's no other way to describe it. The churn that we're seeing at the bottom of the roster, I mean, you almost look at it like from a football perspective, because you kind of see some of that stuff during an NFL season where guys at the tail end of the roster, they're on and off the roster, things like that. You don't typically see that with baseball, but we're seeing it here for the Marlins because the injuries have just they've kind of derailed the plan. I think we're seeing guys like Luis Madero. We're going to see, maybe Devin Marrero get a call from Jacksonville. If we know Rojas
he is with the team. Just so he is with the team. He's on the taxi party. I'm sure that he'll be called up tomorrow. We can get to why it's Madero today, but he is with the team, so he is the guy.
Who is it again? I missed it.
Devin Marrero.
Yeah. So you look at stuff like that, and then they're not going to call up a guy like, say, Bryson Brigman, who's playing pretty well in Jacksonville, because you're going to lose him when you have to DFA him. So they have to play with the bottom end of this roster in order to not lose some of these prospects that would otherwise get grabbed in waivers and things like that. So we're getting journeyman guys. We're getting guys, long shot guys. Zach Thompson, a very similar story. Like he's a guy that kind of came out of nowhere for this club. He was with the White Sox for a long time, and then, he's pitched reasonably well considering the situation. But you look at the bottom end of this roster, and they're just I'm not sure that there are very many teams that are built to sustain this number of injuries. BA might have been moved to the 60-man. Obviously the injury is something that they need to make sure that they get right, but he might have been moved just to create the space on the 40-man roster, to give him a little bit of time, things like that. So it's such a mess because the injuries have had such an incredible effect. And the problem too that's kind of compounding this is it's the left side of the infield. It's not like an infielder and an outfielder where you would have a little bit more flexibility with the roster. But since it's literally two guys that are anchoring the one side of the infield, it makes things a little bit more complicated, from a roster construction perspective. And then, when you start talking about why would they call up a pitcher and not a position player, they don't have the confidence in the back end of their rotation right now.
And this is where I wanted to go next, David, is I want to go to Noah here. What does it say about Braxton Garrett that they feel the need to call up a 15th arm to have because they had a bad day yesterday with the bullpen? And look at all the freaking people.
I just put myself there to see what it looks like when there's 7 people on the screen.
But anyway, what is it? Is that concerning from a Marlins fan's perspective of this is our, one of our top 10 prospects, and they don't feel confident enough in him that he can get 4 or 5 innings to the point where they have to call up a DFA guy?
I don't think it's a confidence in Braxton Garrett. I think it's a confidence in the back end, as you said, the back end bullpen guys. We can't expect all of our pitchers to go 7 or 8 innings every game. We can't do that. That's not sustainable. We have to be able to back them up with good relievers. And if our relievers are falling short, we need backup there. So and right now there's really no infielder that you could call up right away that could have been with the team like immediately. I think Madero is pretty much we need someone now, and might as well give us some help on the bullpen because we burned a bunch of guys yesterday.
Yeah, no, that's what it seems like, and it seems like he'll just get sacrificed again for the second time this year tomorrow for Devin Marrero because the Marlins need an infielder now that Jose Devers is on the IL, and then they're not going to call up a guy like you mentioned, Bryson Brigman, because they don't want to have to DFA him right away. So instead we get Devin Marrero, and I'm glad, Alex Carver, you just joined at the perfect time because you are the guy I wanted to go to on this one. Tell us a little bit about about Devin Marrero, what kind of year he's been having. You say he's having a pretty good year. So what have you seen, and what does he bring to the Marlins here?
Yeah, what's up, guys? Devin Marrero, been in the league for a long time, gotten his opportunities, was with the Marlins in 2019. Where you're going to get is bench production. He plays everywhere. He can play every infield spot, including first base. has been doing good in AAA to start off June. He's hit a couple home runs. He had a walk-off hit the other night. But, yeah, he's a slashy little hitter, just that utility type, and that's what he's going to be for the Marlins. And, yeah, as you guys said, it's not Bryson Brigman because when Miguel Rojas comes back in 4 days, you'd much rather DFA Devin Marrero than have to DFA a 26-year-old with Bryson Brigman and potentially lose him. So, yeah, they go with the older, more experienced guy. He is what he is. They'll probably DFA him when Miggy's ready to come back, and he'll probably go unclaimed. So it's a low-risk move for the Marlins. I know a lot of people wanted to see Bryson Brigman, but with Miggy on the mend, and he'll probably only be in Jacksonville for like 3 days. So you may not see Devin Marrero much, maybe just off the bench a couple times. Who knows? But, yeah, just some bench length for this road trip. So, yeah, I agree with this move.
All right, I want to go a little bit. Sorry, no, go ahead.
Another hiccup that should probably be mentioned is Miggy was supposed to start in Jacksonville yesterday, and the game got rained out. So that's that puts a little bit into the works.
Yeah. So I here's where I want to get controversial for a second and just kind of fire up the discussion. Why not bring up Brigman, okay, and just cut your ties with Isan Diaz, and he's the guy that you sacrificed on Miguel Rojas?
Because of who you traded for, man. We talked about it last time. That's the only reason, and I'm not saying it's a good reason. I think, in my opinion, it's an atrocious reason. You got to figure out why someone's here. Same reason with Sierra. Why is someone here? Is he just here because he's out of options, or is he here because he's one of the best 26 men on the roster? Neither of those things are true, but I'm just telling you what's going through their head. I'm not going to sacrifice the only key thing left because Monte is Monte, Lewis Brinson is Lewis Brinson. That's the reason that I wish they would do that. Bryson Brigman, why not give it a shot? But
I understand. I understand the optics, and I'm an optics guy. I understand it, but at some point, good Lord, just move on.
It's hard to hit 141, man. It is hard to hit 141.
It's holding the team back from taking a step forward past that trade. We all know that the trade was a disaster. Oh God, they're attaching headlines to my name now. But you know what? It's just like at some point, you have to put the trade behind you. You have to say we screwed up. We had to trade Yelich, and it didn't work. Let's be clear. There was no choice. Like this is what they had to do. He was going to walk in free agency, and he would have just held you out and strapped you down and tied your hands. But so you had to get rid of him, and it didn't work. It happens. Sometimes trades are bad. This is one of the worst ones. If you talk about a guy that became an MVP, but Kevin, are you with me? It's time, right? It's time to just let it go.
Man, it's time to cut ties with a lot of these players on the roster. I can name a couple right now. Magneuris, Sierra, John Birdie. I wouldn't mind cutting ties with him. Lewis Brinson. I mean, we just have to start doing that now.
I unlocked something much deeper in this chat right here.
And just
what you mentioned, Sierra, and this is another place that I want to go here, is outfield. So
yeah.
So here's where I want to go here.
Eli, while you're at it, put me down as Magneuris.
Hey, you said you. Oh, okay, Sierra.
You're done with Magneuris Sierra.
Oh, that's your guy, girl.
I'm his biggest fan. We win when he's in the lineup, and Isan's been getting on base more lately. So I think you're all going to be proven wrong. But hey,
he's been getting on base, but he just kind of hits ground outs to the right side every time.
Okay, but he's not. He's getting on base. His average is really improving over the last 7 games.
What is his average up to? 140?
He's not even batting 200.
He's batting over 200 in the last 7 games. Look at
he's batting over 200.
Hall of Fame. Put him in the Hall.
Improvement.
It's improvement. To be fair, it is an improvement. But anyway, I want to go.
His defensive plays have been great.
No, he has been. Let's be clear.
He's been good at third. I mean, I guess in his defense, I mean, and I'm not an Isan guy by any stretch of the imagination, although. I mean, I don't think I'm ever going to forget his debut, right, against DeGrom and the dad and everything on TV. But great. I mean, it's only 90 games for him. I mean, I know this is a conversation that's been had on Twitter ad nauseum. It's only 90 games for him, and he's still relatively young. He had a great run in AAA, so it's hard to justify given the numbers. But I don't know that they're ready to cut ties with somebody like that young, that relatively inexperienced, that he's been around for a couple of years, but I mean, not really, so it's weird.
I pulled up the stats on Isan. His last 30 games, 141. His last 15 games, 152. His last 7 games, 217.
Oh, Dude. Hey, they getting better.
Oh, man.
1% less worse every day. That's the Stugatz motto. The Stugatz is strong, and Isan Diaz, he's just trying to be 1% less worse every day. But oh boy, the infield is a mess because we like you mentioned earlier, David. It's the left side of the infield, so you got screwed. You lost your your starting shortstop. You lost your starting third baseman. The outfield has kind of been a mess all year because they have a bit of an overload in the outfield, and they've got a bit of an overload in the outfield with prospects. But what I want to go to here is Corey Dickerson picks up a little knock yesterday, and he's not in the lineup. Okay, that's fine. That happens. Sometimes the guy's not in the lineup the next day. The last time the Marlins were on a 3-game road trip and they dealt with injury issues, they ended up having like a 2 or 3-man bench the entire time, and they had a bunch of these, bad situations where they were like pinch hitting, pitchers, and all this stuff. And
Those
right
were
now,
fun.
it was fun, but not really because pitchers hitting is not that fun. So anyway, we go. Now you look at Corey Dickerson, and he's got a knock, and it's on the first game of a 6-game road trip. You do have an off day where you could, make a roster adjustment in between St. Louis and Chicago on Thursday, but they don't want to end up in the same place, right? I tweeted, just put him on the IL, put Dickerson on the IL. It's 10 days, okay? You can stay afloat for 10 days, and Jesus Sanchez, you're down there in AAA and you're hitting a home run 508 feet every night. Come get your shot. You know what I mean? Here you are. Here's your time. So am I the only one that's sitting here going, why do we need to carry a 2-man bench when we can just say, Dickerson, we'll see you in 10 days, even if it's just a 3 or 4 day injury. We'll see you in 10 days. Let's give Jesus a shot. If Jesus starts raking, then you start looking at having trade pieces, and you might be able to say, okay, Sierra, it's time for us to move on because now we can drop a guy down a spot in the
I've done that from the start of the season.
Yeah. I know Kevin's been on that train since the start of the season.
Jesus Sanchez needs to be up here. It's the beginning and the end of it.
The thing I saw was that they want to make sure he can stay healthy for a long time because there have been some durability concerns.
He's been healthier than half of our major league lineup.
Well, he also missed. That's fair, but he also missed a couple games recently when he took a foul ball off the foot and this and that and the other. Alex, I know that you've seen him in and out of the lineup a little bit, but am I missing something with Dickerson? What are they? They're trying to hold out. Maybe he's okay. He's just getting an off day in a matchup or something. I don't know. Wainwright's pitching tonight, right? So, what am I missing? David, go ahead, take it. I don't know who to go here because it's so all over the place.
Yeah, listen, this is a tough one, and it gets tougher and tougher with every home run that we see Jesus Sanchez hit to justify keeping him in Jacksonville. But I do think, as you mentioned, the durability concerns are legitimate concerns. And then you couple that with how terrible he looked last year in his short run with the team, in 2020, so I think those two things combined are probably what's ultimately keeping him down. They want to see him get those consistent at-bats. And listen, by the end of the summer, if he's not up, then I have no idea what they're doing. But with Dickerson, I think it might be they want to get him going so that maybe they do ultimately flip him. I know Kevin mentioned that he wants to be like a buyer, but I'm not sure that the Marlins are ultimately going to buy. So I think Dickerson ends up being one of those guys that they look to flip. So they're going to want to have him available to get him going because he really hasn't been. He really hasn't been all that good, Mm-hmm. So it's tough to justify. It gets harder to justify with every great game that Sanchez has, but yeah, the outfield, it's a mess. Because we're missing production from guys that we need production. Duvall's warming up now again, so that's obviously a good thing, right? But it's getting harder and harder for them to justify keeping Sanchez in Jacksonville.
Well, Alex, sorry, go ahead, Isaac, go ahead.
Oh no, well, if I'm being honest about what you said, Ethan, about Corey, let's be honest, you can try trading him all you want. You're not going to get anything for him. Yeah. I think that ship has sailed, right? So you say, why not put him on the 10-day IL? Why the hell not? It's not like, you guys mentioned staying afloat while he's on the IL. he's not exactly carrying the offense here. I think you're gonna have a much better, you're gonna be fine staying afloat, whatever that means. Have Jesus come up, see what he can do, and then you can make some decisions based on that, rather than just no major league team should have a 2-man bench. That should be illegal. So I really don't know.
Yeah.
I think the other thing in play might be I know that he was having some family issues and things like that, some health issues with his dad. So I think there might be a few larger issues at play here that obviously we aren't fully privy to, so there might,
of course,
there might be playing with some kid gloves there with like handling him. But yeah, it's tough to justify not having Sanchez up on the major league roster, considering how well he's playing in Jacksonville.
Eli, you're crazy.
With what's coming up on the screen here, like the Marlins might be able to do a little bit of buying and selling at the same time, the way that they sold Gallen but bought Jazz, right? So they might be able to do a little bit of that here and there. But Alex, I want to go to you. You keep up with the minor leagues more than anybody. Jesus has, he hit a home run recently that went 508 feet, but it hasn't been a great June for him, right?
Yeah, I mean, just based off how he started the year, I guess you could say he's on like a cold streak. But, I mean, the guy hits. I mean, he plays the field, he throws. The guy just does everything. I mean, David said it. There's no reason for Jesus Sanchez not to be here. Maybe not for Corey Dickerson, because, I mean, if we're going to get anything out of him, and I don't think they'll be able to because of what his contract is for the rest of the year, but if they're going to get anything out of him, he has to play and show that he can get on base and maybe – what he hasn't done is hit for power. I don't think if he doesn't show he can hit for power, we're not going to get anything for him. So if he's just this regular singles hitter, his batting average continues to drop as his BABIP normalizes. He played over his head to start the season. That was the time to flip him, and they didn't do it. So I think now the ship has sailed on trading him. Is a 10-day IL possible? Yes, but I mean, then you have to find the injury, right? I mean, is he really injured is the question. If he's not injured and you put him on the injured list, then you get in trouble with the union. You don't want that headache or anything like that, right? So, it is what it is right now with Dickerson. Who he should be here for, and we've already talked about this ad nauseum, is Magneuris Sierra, who is the second worst player on the team next to Isan Diaz. They just need to get rid of Magneuris Sierra.
Guys.
These are Noah's guys, man.
No, the stats prove it, man.
We're just teeing off on his guys.
Okay,
man.
This is the last thing I got to say because I have to leave. I have something to be at. If Magneuris Sierra and Isan Diaz positively affect tonight's game, you all owe me. Got it?
We're playing with a 6-man lineup.
They're both in the lineup tonight, so you're playing a little bit of a bet there, but I don't know what the odds are on that, on Magneuris Sierra and Isan Diaz positively impacting this game. I think
You never know.
that
We
might
win
be like
when Mags is in the lineup.
that might be like a plus 275 or
I mean,
something.
hey, maybe Isan has a nice play at third end.
Yeah, you know what? I will give him credit. He has been pretty good over.
He's been phenomenal at third base.
Yeah, he's made some nice plays.
Yeah.
But
And
there's
Magneuris
also
Sierra
still
has
some.
a cannon for an arm.
Yeah, but now we have Starling Marte to play center field, who's the best Marlin
Now we
since
have- now we
Giancarlo
have
Stanton.
cannon- Now we have cannons in left and right.
And we have two.
And center.
Yeah,
I
Duvall's
forgot
at a
center.
cannon.
Why did I
Jesus
forget
Sanchez has one of the best arms in the system.
Yeah.
No.
I don't think it's kind of like 5-on-1 here. Like I appreciate I respect the effort, and I do. Mags does contribute in a way in terms of his defense and his base running ability, but I mean you got to be on base to use your legs. You know what I mean? It's the same.
He's worse than Billy Hamilton was.
I'm gonna head out. I have to go. Go fish.
Go fish. Go
I'm
enjoy
taking
yourself, Noah.
2 out of 3 in this series.
2 out of 3 from Noah. All right, so that's our first prediction of the series. So the roster really is a mess when you look at it, just because of the injuries, and the Marlins certainly aren't the only team in this situation. The injuries all over the place have just been crazy. But it just puts them in this tough spot. And again, I just go back to the fact that they have to call up an arm for, extra protection, where they have 15 guys, 15 arms now, because they are not overly confident in Braxton Garrett being able to give them 5 or 6 innings. And for a guy who's your top, a top 10 prospect, that's a little concerning to me. And it speaks to a bigger issue of, we know that the depth of the system, and the system is really good. Let's not, we know that the farm system is really good, but a lot of the depth isn't right at the major league level right now, and it's leaving the Marlins in a really tough spot, like you talked about, David, with the bottom of the roster, and not even just the 26-man roster, but the 40-man roster, and it's been a mess all year. And a lot of people have said they've done a bad job, but I don't know if you can really do a good job because it's been so crazy. But the good news is that we do think that Miggy Rowe is going to be back in Chicago. So that's certainly a big development. But Brian Anderson goes on the 60-day IL, as we discussed earlier. And so you're going to be without him for a while. So you're still going to have some of these roster issues in terms of you're probably going to be seeing a lot of Isan. You're probably going to be seeing a lot of Birdie. And I don't think they expected Birdie to be playing in an everyday role this year. They certainly, I think we all know that. I think we expected him to be in that kind of utility man role. But here he is, and he's playing at either second or third every day because of this situation. So anyway, it's a crazy mess. Any last comments before we get going into just kind of previewing this series?
Yeah, I mean, I can see maybe why they went pitcher friendly for this game specifically. Only, this lineup is not, it's going to be tough for Braxton. There's not a single lefty in the starting lineup today. You have Goldschmidt, you have Arenado, lefty crushers. Yadi's also a lefty crusher. So it's going to be a tough. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes 3-4 innings at most here. And depending on how the game is, we'll see if we see Madero or not. But it's going to be a bullpen game, and they're going to really depend on Trevor and Sandy for the next 2 games. But yeah, I kind of looking at the lineup, I realized I forgot they have no lefties, so it's going to be tough for Braxton for sure.
Well, I didn't even realize that they've got, Dylan Carlson is a switch hitter, and that kid's a stud.
Yeah.
And so you're looking at, he's been tremendous this year, and then you obviously have Goldschmidt and Arenado, and the Cardinals always have to seem to have these really annoying, just like good baseball players, like a ball player, you know what I mean? Like a guy like Tommy Edman, who just does everything. He fields, he can play all over the diamond. He's got speed, he can hit, and then you've got Paul DeYoung, who's a power hitting shortstop. They have all these good, technically good guys, sound guys, but you look at them, and let's take a look at their schedule. I know for a fact that they're coming off a 3-game sweep to my Cubbies because I heard about it a lot in my Cubbies group chat, and obviously love when we beat up on the Cardinals. But 32-33, they're sitting in 4th place in a weak National League Central. If you really look at it, the Reds are bad. The Pirates are one of the worst teams in baseball, and nobody had any expectations for the Cubs this year, and they're 10 games, 11 games over 500. And the Brewers are kind of like, we're all just kind of waiting on the Brewers to fall off. I feel like a bunch of people picked the Brewers to win the National League Central this year, but I never really understood why. Maybe when the Spider Tech, if they actually decide to crack down on all the foreign substance stuff, we'll see what the Brewers really are, because it's a little fishy what's going on with Peralta, Woodruff, and Burns here. But anyway, the Cardinals are 32-33 in a weak National League Central. They're in 4th place. They're coming off a sweep of the Cubs, and they've actually lost, going back to their series in Arizona. They've won 2 of their last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, 12, 13 games.
They're struggling, no doubt.
They're 2-11 or 2-12. I can't tell, in their last 13 or 14 games. So this is a team that's in a rut right now. And really, a rut even worse than what we've seen from the Marlins when they were, went on that 1-8 road trip. So what has it been with the Cardinals? And who's Oviedo? Wainwright's going today. They don't have a guy announced for tomorrow.
It's gonna be Kim. It's gonna be the lefty Kim.
Yeah. Okay. No Michaelis, no Flaherty in this series. So you kind of avoid the top 2 guys in this rotation. So it sets up well a struggling team coming off a sweep to a division rival that kind of puts them in a really tough spot, because like I mentioned, the Brewers and the Cubs are both, killing it right now. So a reeling ball club that the Marlins have a pretty good opportunity to take advantage of. Am I wrong?
No, you're not. You're completely right. This is a team that is not playing their best baseball right now, and it's time to go out and get these 3 games. These are going to be pretty important. It's going to help them in the standings. They're right there with the Braves in that third. They're Marlins in 4th. Braves are in third place. 3 wins, a sweep of the Cardinals would for sure put them in that 3rd place spot. So it's time to take advantage. And this is a pretty good Cardinals lineup. They have Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, Yadi Molina. This is a good team. They're just not playing their best baseball right now.
And one guy to watch is Tyler O'Neill. He's been extremely hot as of late.
Another one of those Cardinal guys, right? Like you have the Patriot way, there's like the Cardinal way, and there's these Cardinal guys. Like Tyler O'Neill just feels like another one of them. But they come into this game, actually, heads up, the Marlins have more weighted runs created plus than the Cardinals. The Marlins are in 19th at 93, and the Cardinals are in 20th at 92. You look at the team ERA, and they are 24th in pitch. Hold on, let me find this. But, a good lineup, big names, but been struggling so far this year. Paul Goldschmidt, I don't think he's having that good of a year so far this year. And the Cardinals have the 12th worst ERA in baseball. They're tied with the Braves at 4.37. So this is a pitching staff you can take advantage of. And God, get that graphic off the screen there. I don't even want to go into. I'm going to be fighting demons against Yadi Molina all season because he's having a great year. But anyway, David, what do you see from this Cardinals team, and where do you see the Marlins able to take advantage, in this 3-game series?
So, as you mentioned, I mean, now is the time to catch the Cardinals because they're coming off a really difficult series. As you mentioned, 1-9 in their last 10 games. The lineup they've got those big names in there, but the lineup hasn't been producing over this skid that they're on. I mean, a 218 batting average over their last 10 games, and the pitching is at 6.59 ERA over their last 10 games. I mean, I know that run differential doesn't really mean anything, but they've been outscored by 32 runs over the last 10 games, So this is an opportunity for the Marlins to kind of get going on the road. I mean, prior to that nightmare road trip that they just finished, the Marlins were okay on the road. They were competitive on the road, and they really need to pick up at least 2 of these 3 games because then they go to Chicago.
I was just going to say,
and then so we've got the Cubs who are, leading the NL Central and kind of maybe taking people by surprise. But it doesn't get any easier after this, right? Because it's to Chicago, and then we've got a couple with Toronto, and we saw how it went with Toronto the last time we played them. So, the Marlins have to get 2 out of 3. You've got Trevor and you've got Sandy both going in this series. Tonight is up in the air because of Braxton Garrett, but you look at it and you have to get 2 out of 3 here. You have to.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. When you look at this lineup, like it is kind of struggling. Like Goldschmidt, only 101 weighted runs created plus this year. You would expect more from him. 146 last year. He's a career 139 weighted runs created plus guy. I'm sure at some point he'll get going. He's that good of a hitter. One guy that's not not at all is Arenado. He's having a great year. Even outside of Colorado, he's actually having his weighted runs created plus is higher than his career weighted runs created plus right now at 129. So yeah, it's a tough challenge for the Marlins, but the good news is you get 2 of the big 3 in this series. And just Isaac, I want to go to you on this because we talked about this on the last stream, but the confidence boost that the Marlins should have when they go into a series knowing we've got Trevor and we've got Sandy. And then when they go to Chicago, they get Pablo. So, the confidence that it instills in the team when they've got 2 of their guys going.
Absolutely. And especially if you can come out of tonight's game with a W, that's like really gives you some momentum. I remember Sandy and Trevor. Remember, that was his first start of the year. This was the second series of the season where the Cardinals came to town. And Trevor struggled in the first, but he really came back. Tyler O'Neill and a lot of Cardinal hitters struggle mightily against Sandy. And, Sandy's going to be a little amped up. That's a team, he was with for a long time. So it's a huge confidence boost to have both of those guys in the pitch, schedule to pitch in the series.
Yeah, and then one thing that I didn't mention, I might have briefly glanced over it, is that Starling Marte was named National League Player of the Week this week. Despite that, he's not even in the top 20, I want to say, in All-Star voting. So Marlins fans out there listening, go get your All-Star votes in. Jazz is in 4th in OPS among second basemen. He's not even in the top 10 in All-Star voting. It's ridiculous. Go get these guys. They should be at least one guy is going to make it because one guy from every team has to make it. But the Marlins deserve to have a few All-Stars this year because despite not being a very great team, they've been they've had a lot of really good individual performances. Jesus Aguilar is another guy that they're promoting as though they want to get him in the All-Star game. Jazz, certainly. The MLB has to do a better job of promoting Jazz if he's 10th right now in the All-Star voting, especially with this kind of season that he's having. So, but coming into this one, coming into this series, you're looking at Jazz, not Corey Dickerson, Marte and Aguilar have all been hitting really well. So Kevin, you like them to carry it forward. They're not facing the toughest arms in this one, and Wainwright is he 40 yet? I don't even know if he's 40 yet, but he's got to be getting up there. So what have you liked? What have you liked that you see Jazz making the adjustments and just kind of getting back to himself? David mentioned earlier how consistent he's been this year. So what did you like from him, and what makes you confident that he's going to continue it going here in St. Louis?
I mean, first, they don't have Flaherty going, so that's a big positive for this team. They don't have their top pitchers going, so I do expect the guys you mentioned, Aguilar. Aguilar plays great on the road. He has 12 homers on the road. We have to mention that for sure. Marte is just carrying this team on his back. Chisholm's helping him too, so I expect all these guys to just play well. They have to stay consistent. I think that's the word we've used a lot with all these players, consistency, and they've been consistent. They had a good homestand. Another name we should have in there is Alfaro. He's been great for this team as of late. For sure, keeping his name in there for a catcher. I mean, I think we're looking at 2019 Alfaro that we all believed would be the future catcher at some point. So I think Alfaro should be in that name. Birdie's been having his moments, we could say. So, I mean, this whole team has been good. I think if we carry this on to St. Louis, we should be able to sweep, or at least 2 out of 3.
It's a good time to get the Cardinals for sure. Alex, I want to go to you because I don't think you were on when we just kind of glanced over Marte a little bit. Just what you're seeing from him, and I guess we might as well. Is he the best Marlin since Stanton?
Yeah, I think he's up there. I know this conversation was going on Twitter with Craig Mish and a bunch of other people. Honestly, I think he's got to be. They were saying top 6. I would say he's probably top 4 or 5 in franchise history, just because he has every single tool, and then behind the scenes, he's great as well. You hear Jazz talk about that. I know you were there for that, Ethan. He's mentoring kids at a time where the franchise really needs guys like that. You got Miggy, but to have a second guy, especially when Miggy's injured, that's huge. He's taking guys under his wing. You love to see that from an older veteran player. And then on field, he speaks for himself, man. So as long as that guy's healthy, I think he's probably, I would say in terms of production, and again, off the field, like I said, I would probably say I'd probably put 4 other guys ahead of him in Cabrera, Luis Castillo, Stanton, and maybe Hanley Ramirez would be the only other one. But other than those guys, I think Marte is one of the best Marlins that's ever played in Miami, which just goes to show we need to sign him, and we need to sign him right now. I know that's another discussion, but as time moves on, he gets more expensive. So they need to get it done.
It's crazy that he's even in this discussion because he's only played 60-something games for the Marlins, but the level that he's been playing at recently, you can talk about how great Yelich was after he left Miami, and he was great, and he was good here. Like, I looked at the numbers today. He's never had a season under 100 weighted runs created plus, so he's been a great hitter his whole career, and he was really good here. But he was never playing at this level where we're seeing Marte flashing all 5 tools night in, night out. I tweeted about this when I went to the game on Saturday. That insurance run in the 9th inning was all Marte. It was all him. He beat out an infield single. He steals a base on second base, and then Aguilar hits this little chick swing blooper, and he reads halfway down that it's going to land, and he's got enough speed to score from second. Like, he just does things by himself, and then he makes the 2. The first one, I was like, that's a good catch, but since we're all crazy about Marte right now, it's a really great one. But that second catch that he made in the 9th inning was really stunning. Like, just the speed to track that down and the precision in he's just so tremendous. And this subject has been beaten into the ground recently, but how does it not force their hand at some point? We just put a whole pod out, and I know there's 10 minutes left, but we could put together a whole stream about this. But is it more of the same, David, in this series? Do you just expect him to keep it going? At some point, he has to hit a bit of a wall, right?
You would think, right? But I mean, I hope not. I hope that wall doesn't happen until, way down the line, if anything. But because if the Marlins are going to get back into this race, I mean, they're 7 behind in the division, I think. He has to. He has to carry the team. He has to provide that spark. He has to get on base. He has to, save the runs and, playing out in the field. He's got to do it all. Because, I mean, Jazz is a rookie. Jazz has been great, but, you expect it from a guy like Marte. And now that we're on the road, hopefully Aguilar can get going a little bit more too, because he seems to play better on the road. But, yeah, and listen, Jeremy Taché had a great thread on Twitter about paying Marte. Somebody's got to get the money, right? Because they have so many of these young guys on these contracts. Why not pay Marte? So it's really, really like this decision is going to tell us a lot about how the front office views the club. Because if they think the competitive window is opening now, they pay him. But if they think they're still a year or two away, then they deal him. Because if they trade him at the deadline, they're going to get a haul from somebody.
Yeah, from a contending team too.
Absolutely. So it's going to tell us, and I know that we're probably like a month or so away from really getting a better sense of what's happening, but it's going to tell us very clearly where the front office heads at, because they haven't really started the extension talks according to Craig Mish. So and that stuff, I don't know how much you can do during the season, and if he hits free agency, then the price tag is going to go flying up. So he has to carry this team right now, and then they have to figure out a way to keep him if they believe their competitive window is opening. If not, then they're going to deal him. So, I mean, it'll be interesting.
I think it's a player that you look at and say, why has this guy never been considered one of the best players in baseball? Because clearly he is. And I think the only answer that you can provide is the teams that he's played for. I mean, when you play for the Pittsburgh Pirates and then you play for the Marlins, you don't get the national media attention. So if I'm Starling Marte, I know he said he wants to come back, which I love that. But you're at the twilight of your career. He's getting older. I want to go to a winner. I want to go somewhere where my name's going to be in lights and people are going to recognize me for what I am. That's what I would think if I'm Starling Marte. I know he said he wants to be here. Craig said that, and the Marlins haven't approached him yet, which we know. But, I mean, man, I just looking into his head, I would really want to know, what makes you want to stay in Miami in this point in your career.
And that's why when I all this discussion was happening, I said the Marlins can talk whatever they want. He's not going to sign an extension. He's going to go to free agency, and he's going to try and get paid, or he's going to try and go to take a pay cut and go to a contender. And so I never thought there was a chance that they could extend him, which is why I was a little bit surprised, honestly, when he told Craig that he wanted to stay in Miami.
Yeah, I mean, if you have that chance, Ethan, if you have that chance to extend this player, I know what they have in the outfield. We know what they have in the outfield. You do it, and you do it immediately.
Because they don't have, they've got great outfielders. They don't have a center fielder close yet. Connor Scott's a little bit away. Some of the other guys are a little bit away. I can't think of any of the other center fielders.
At least 2 years. At least 2 years.
Give you the answer.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's at least 2 years. So if you can get him on a 2-year contract, you absolutely do it. 100%.
You know what I'll say? I'm just going to go out and say it because I didn't get to go on the Pay Marte pod yesterday, even though I've been very outspoken about this subject. I was disappointed not be on it. I think they pay him. I do. I think that if he really wants to stay, they're going to give him $20 million either in a qualifying offer, or they'll just decide to offer him 2 or 3 years. And if he really wants to stay that badly, he's not going to turn down $20 million from the place he wants to be. So I think they sign him. I don't think they trade him because Jeter is going to do everything he can to stay in this race. And this is a really good opportunity for the Marlins to stay in this race right now because they're playing a team that's really struggling. And
do you have a lineup change, Ethan?
We have a lineup change.
Lewin Diaz at third base. I don't know if he's ever played there in his career.
That can't possibly be.
I thought it was a typo for a second.
No, there's been typos.
It's got to be. It's got to be wrong. Yeah, it's got to be wrong.
Yeah, he's going to be playing at first base.
They're desperate.
Yeah, that has to be wrong.
Maybe Aguilar's playing third base.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Maybe.
I just go by what the team emailed us a few minutes ago. That was Isan at third, but that's hilarious. That typo that Lewin is there.
Yeah,
in the app.
Didn't they originally have Matt?
It sounds like whoever's running the app is trying to get Isan off the team just as much as
he was messing with us today. I saw that Sierra was playing. I saw the lineup came out, and I saw Jazz was playing left field, and Sierra was playing second base, and I was like, "This isn't right." So all the beat reporters were like, "What the hell's going on here?" Eli, you popped in, so I imagine you have something to say.
I guess just one thing on Marte, or a few things for people that didn't listen to the pod. I mean, the extension that I came up with, or really the contract at the end of the year, would be 4 years and $67 million. And I know that's longer than what a lot of people are comfortable with, but I think just based off like previous comps, that I think that's kind of where he is heading. But also, in terms of trading him at the deadline, I think you guys might be a little bit. Even though you might be underselling his earning power as a free agent, I think you don't want to oversell how much value he has on the market, because as a rental, these guys do not really bring back much of anything when they're traded during the middle of their walk year. Like, you could go through the list in the last few years of even the highest profile guys that as a rental, there's just teams are so conscious about years of control. That's the most important thing to all these teams right now, is having control over these guys.
You want to know a great example is what the Cubs traded for Nick Castellanos. They traded jack shit for that guy, and he was electric when he got to Chicago. And they gave up like a reliever I had never heard of and somebody else. You know what I mean? So you're right that they might not fetch as much as we think they can, even though he's playing at a level that's
Look
so
at the
high.
Machado trade, and even Manny Machado didn't net, an insane haul that the Orioles were expecting. So,
Yeah.
All right, well, 4 minutes left until game time. First pitch between the Marlins and Cardinals to start a 3-game set. Braxton Garrett goes for the Marlins tonight. We'll see how long he is able to make it through. And Adam Wainwright goes for the Cardinals. Let's go around. Eli, while you're here, I don't know how much of a prediction guy you are.
Yeah.
What do you got?
I think the Marlins are going to go 1-2, win just one game during this series. That people have fallen into that trap where they see a team playing terribly and they're like, this is the perfect time to get them. To me, I tend to lean the other way. I'm like, the Cardinals are not this bad, and they are going to snap it around.
That's kind of what I was thinking, Eli.
Yeah. I'll go with the classic, you get beat up pretty bad the first 2 games, and then Sandy kind of puts him on his back in the 3rd game.
Kevin?
Yeah. At first, when I first got into the show, I was going to say they're going to win 1, but, I noticed this Trevor Rogers the 2nd game. So I think they'll take 2 out of 3. They lose tonight. They win the next 2.
Cool. Isaac?
I'll go with Kevin on that one. I think they lose tonight and they win 2 out of 3 with Sandy and Trevor back-to-back for sure.
Alex?
Man, everybody's out on Braxton, man. I'll tell you what. I mean, I know he didn't have a fantastic start his last time out, but all he was missing was fastball command. Changeup looked good. Curveball is always good. So all he's missing is fastball command. And if he can do that, he's good. He's so good. Stuff plays. I'm going to say they take 2 out of 3 and lose tomorrow. I'll say they win tonight and win with Sandy, and Trevor has a rough start and they lose that game. So I'll say 2 out of 3 as well, but they win tonight.
He could also use a couple ticks of velocity on that fastball. David?
Sure, but he dials it back when the command's off. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And he does have a great breaking ball, and there's no doubt about that. And it can show up at any time. David, your prediction for this series?
So my head tells me to go with Eli and say 1 and 2, but my heart says we got to get 2 out of 3 here. So I'm gonna go 2 out of 3, and that they get Trevor and Sandy starts just like the other guys mentioned.
Yeah, I'm with that, because you have to take 2 or 3 because the Cubs, you're heading to Chicago and the Cubs are hot and Wrigley Field is at full capacity. And you can't really overstate how much a full crowd means right now, because we haven't seen it a lot around the league. And I'm going to be there, and I know what it's going to be like at Wrigley. It's going to be rocking. You saw what it was like when the Cardinals were in town this past weekend. It was crazy, and it got to they swept the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So
one
you
note
don't want to
on
run into a hot
this
Cubs.
series with the Cardinals tonight's game happens to be the very first game all year that the Cardinals have full capacity.
Of course. Why not? So you run into the Cardinals with full capacity.
It's going to be an interesting test for the rookies. They haven't really played in front of anybody. I mean, they had the 1 game in Boston, but let's see Jazz. Let's see some of these pitchers. We're really going to get a sense of how they're going to deal with it moving forward, because they haven't really had to deal with it yet.
And I do want to mention, last time the Marlins were in Chicago, something pretty good happened. They won a playoff series. I just want to mention that.
I know about that one. That one was tough on the soul for sure, because obviously I have my allegiances. The Cubs series preview should be fun. I'll definitely try and drop in from Wrigley. But anyway, for Eli, for Kevin, for Isaac, for Alex, for David, for Noah, I am Ethan Badowski. I think the Marlins take 2 of 3 with Trevor and Sandy on the mound the next couple of days. I'm not betting against those guys. Enjoy the series. Enjoy the game tonight. Go Fish.